GPU news. Like, we have so much news here today. Like, look how many freaking tabs up here. It's crazy. We got new GPUs from AMD, as you can see right here. We got to talk about that. New graphics cards from NVIDIA. We can see actually sales numbers on these cards, see the price adjustments that are going on. We've got new CPUs. We got FSR 3 launching in new games, and we also have an unmade bed in the background.
If you want to make it, do it.
Okay, AMD's new graphics card, the community sentiment hasn't been all that good. It's been a pretty uneventful launch, and it's almost like AMD tried to hide this. Like, when they first announced it, they really didn't like make a big fuss about it. They gave it like 10 seconds of airtime in their like 30-minute presentation that honestly, I don't think they even cared about it. And that's probably because, and probably the community sentiment of it being pretty lame, is that it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and it only costs $330. So of any graphics card that we've, I think, ever seen, this is the cheapest one where we're getting the most VRAM on it. Does it matter? That's the real question. Because when you look at the specs of this card compared to the original 7600, this has the same amount of compute units on it. It has a very similar clock speed. It's a little bit overclocked, okay? Like, it's barely anything though. And the only thing that's really expanded here is that VRAM, but not even the memory bandwidth or anything. Here's hardware unboxing. All the links to sources I have in the description of this video. I have a lot of sources here, obviously, as you saw by all the freaking tabs up here. Yeah, here is what it turned out. So this is their average at 1080p. This is a resolution that doesn't use as much VRAM. And as you can see, there's 88 FPS on the original 7600, which costs $270. And then there's 95 FPS on the new 7600 XT. Honestly, the average person probably wouldn't even be able to tell what card they're playing on unless you run into a situation where you use more VRAM. Even in their case here, it really depends on how powerful the card is and what settings you can take advantage of, because even here on their 1440p 12 game average, the 7600 XT was only 3 FPS faster than the original 7600, but you're paying $60 more for it. And actually, the most standout card here is the RX 6700 XT, which is really annoying because it's 7600 XT, then it's 6700 XT, and my brain just starts to fart when I say that. The 6700 XT from last generation is getting 76 FPS. Why is there so many 6s and 7s? And the 7600 XT is getting 67. Why are they inverse? What the heck is this? What is it? 7600 XT, 67 FPS. 6700 XT, 76 FPS. Did anybody see this? I'm actually kind of freaked out. That's crazy. But the thing is, like, this last generation card is faster than the new card. It also has more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and it has 12, and 12 is probably enough for a card of this speed. When you look at the prices too, the 6700 XT and the 7600 XT cost basically the same. It's just an AMD moment. And if you can go down to the comment section here, it's like AMD never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Yeah, they could have had a good card here, but they priced at $330. And the situations where that price justifies it is very niche for a lot of people. You usually don't need 16 gigabytes of VRAM. You can usually always make 8 gigabytes work. So on a card of this class, whatever, it's a big nothing burger that they released. That might explain why here, we're actually seeing that the 4070 Ti Super and the 7600 XT, they launched on the same day. But the 4070 Ti Super outselling it 9-1. This one, that costs $800. You would think that the much cheaper card, that $330, would just naturally sell more. That means that AMD's card probably isn't doing that well. Now, this is just from a German retailer, and it's just one retailer, so it's not like an insanely large sample size. This 4070 Ti Super was selling about 280 to 300 graphics cards, and the 7600 XT, I mean, those are some pretty weak sales. 30? About 30. Well, I think the weirdest part is that the 4070 Ti, like the normal one, was actually outselling these other cards by a lot. The 7800 XT looks like it's selling really well. So I think people are really scooping up that value. 16 gigabytes of VRAM at $500 is like real nice. And the 4070 is also doing pretty well in sales. This is about what I'd expect. These are about where the best value is right now. That leads me into the RTX 40 Super graphics cards. Now, LTT, this whole time, these cards have been releasing throughout all of January. Obviously, it's February now. They didn't even do reviews on each of them individually because LTT just said, oh, they're so boring that they don't deserve their own videos. But I really think that this part in the LTT video just really sums it up.
These names. But it comes with 20% increases in its functional units, or FUs for short.
FUs, okay? Remember that word.
As for the 4080 Super, the modest increase in FUs seems to offer a small benefit.
Did you hear that? Wait, let me rewind it. Let me rewind it.
The modest increase in FUs.
The modest increase in FUs. A modest increase in FUs basically sums up this release. Shout out to JoeSir1994. You're the GOAT. Yeah, that's pretty much the Super launch, is that they're not that exciting. That it's actually what 40 series always should have been, and it's only like okay at this point in time. But the real problem with it being what 40 series always should have been, these cards should have launched over a year ago. They're so late. And they're only like okay now after other graphics cards prices have already come down. That some of them are getting price cuts. This is in Europe. I'm not exactly sure where this is. Like if you look at this, I don't know what that currency is, man. Apparently it got a 5% reduction in price, a slight reduction. Maybe it's not selling as well. We're not exactly sure. I mean, if we do reference back to this here, the 4070 Super actually seems like it's selling okay in Europe. This is in Germany. So I'm not exactly sure, but it seems like it's selling fine. So maybe they're just doing a price reduction to correct for currency differences and stuff like that. Videocards.com here does a little sum up of everybody who did a review on the card. I just wanted to point out that there's a review outlet called the Hard Zone. I think especially the most disappointing one is that 4070 Ti Super, because it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM and stuff. You'd think that there'd be this huge difference between this and it has more cores and everything. But if you compare it to the original 4070 Ti, there isn't like this insanely large difference in frames or anything like that. Then the 4070 Super against the 4070, which is surprising. I thought this was going to be the least exciting pair here, but honestly, by the way, I drew an X by all the Super cards. 4070 Super actually has a pretty nice increase of like 20, almost 20 FPS here at 1440p on average from Hardware Unboxed. That's pretty good because it's coming in at $50 more. I wish honestly the 4070 was just going in at $500 and the 4070 Super would go to $550, but that doesn't seem to be what Nvidia is doing. The 4080 Super and against the original 4080, we can see that this is basically the exact same graphics card. I didn't have a 4080 personally to test for my review, but I don't think I would have found out that much. It wouldn't have really been that useful. Basically the same card, but it comes in $200 cheaper. In my review, I kind of talked about that isn't that good. It's still $1,000. It's a huge modest increase in FUs from Nvidia, basically. Now, AMD's graphics cards seem to still be making the best value judgment because this 7900 XT, I mean, this is what I was arguing for basically in all my videos, is that this thing is competing head-to-head against the 4070 Ti. In a lot of the cases at 4K, actually my 7900 XT was head-to-head with the 4080 Super. That's because it has 20 gigabytes of VRAM and everything, and this card goes for cheaper than all of these cards here. This is now $720, and this is the ray tracing. If you want to do ray tracing stuff like that, AMD just isn't going to get you the best value there. Even AMD's $920-ish flagship right now is getting less than like Nvidia's like $800 card. So if you're very concerned about ray tracing, then AMD's cards just aren't the best option. But you've heard that story so many times, it doesn't even matter at this point. But not everybody plays with ray tracing on. I kind of went through a range of emotions with these. With the Super cards, I at first thought they were going to be crappy. And then I saw some leaked specs and stuff like that, and I got really excited for them. I was like, whoa, the price is going to be good, and the specs look good. And then they came out, and they underperformed. Now it's just kind of meh, and it didn't really shake up the market all that much. I mean, if we do look at it, there's been slight changes in the market. The RX 7900 XTX, so this is AMD's $1,000 graphics card typically. We can see that this card has gone down to about $930. I need to stress, this is not the lowest we've ever seen this card. I don't see it here, but we've seen 7900 XTXs go as low as, what, $850 like before? It isn't really the best price right now. Best price adjustment that we've seen is the 7900 XT, going down to about $730 or $750. And this card's pretty solid at that price. I would like to see it at 700 flat. I think it'd be really competitive there. But with the 40 series super cards, I gotta show you this. This is the most ridiculous cooler model I've ever seen. Now, tell me what you guys, would you buy this? This is a 4-slot graphics card, like a full 4 slots. Look how freaking big this thing is. Noctua and Asus teamed up. They've done this before, and what they basically did was just put those ugly brown Noctua fans. Some people are gonna hate me for saying they're ugly, but they're basically strapped onto a graphics card cooler. I think they're like full 120 millimeter fans or something. It's absolutely crazy, but you just see how freaking chunky this card is. That thing is huge. This could be like almost $1,500. It's definitely badass strapping like full-on fans onto a card, but at the same time, I can't help myself. There's like no way this is worth it, like, to anybody. And some people might say that there's an argument that, oh, this card is going to be so silent. But I got the Founders Edition 4080 Super. That is probably going to end up being one of the worst versions of the card, because usually the reference models are. That isn't really guaranteed, and this thing is still whisper quiet. You might not think that's that exciting. It's really expensive and it has barely any tangible benefits. But what you might be interested in is some anime waifu graphics cards. Yeston back at it again, guys. So, the 40s Super launch might not have been that exciting, okay? But Yeston is always coming in clutch trying to save us. 4070 Super here. Got the wedding waifu, and then they also got the beach waifu, just the goats. All right, now I tried to look everywhere on where you could even buy these, just for market research purposes, obviously. And honestly, I couldn't find out where you buy them, because I looked on Yeston's official website, I looked on Newegg, and they just don't have those super cards listed anywhere. So if you do know where you can find them, let me know in the comments. If we can't buy these anime waifu cards, MSI is also coming in clutch. I know you're very worried about. They made a demon one. I'm not gonna lie, her face looks a little weird, but they got some other stuff going on down there. As far as I can tell, pretty clean. It's like a 2-slot card. This is a 4070 Super, and honestly, that card only draws like 200 watts or so. This is probably plenty enough cooling. What I think is really interesting though, so you can have this, and then the actual back plate with the waifu on it is like magnetic. So like, say like your parents are coming over or something and you have your PC there, you usually have this one on, but you can just take that one off and hide what is, you know what I mean, right? They also have another picture down here that I thought you guys would want to see. Enjoy. A new CPU is coming out from AMD. This one was a little bit of a quiet launch. We'll talk about other CPUs that just came out recently. This is one still on the AM4 platform. So this platform is basically officially kind of dead by AMD, but they keep releasing CPUs from it. So this is a Ryzen 7 5700X3D. The X3D means it has extra cache on it, which makes it really good for a lot of games. Not every games, but this makes it, generally speaking, a very good gaming CPU. Well, there is some benchmarks here, but I wanted to see it compared to AMD's original 5800X3D, but it doesn't seem like any outlets actually compared that one. I mean, this guy is literally already out there. I bet you're wondering, what the heck is the difference between this 5700X3D and the 5800X3D? It's basically a 5800X3D because it still has 8 cores and 16 threads. They actually don't show how much cache it has. I'm assuming it has the same amount of cache on it, but the clock speed has been dropped down. So you can see the base clock on the 5800X3D is 3.4 gigahertz versus 3 gigahertz even on the new one. And then it's 4.5 boost gigahertz compared to 4.1 now on the 5700X3D. But what makes it really interesting is when you look at the price of the 5800X3D, still going for like $310, about really close in there. But this new CPU at $250. So literally like usually like a $60 to $70 discount for probably what's going to be very similar gaming performance. And for reference, it's very fast. Like I own a 5800X 3D and it can rip in games. Like if you have anything up to like a 7800 XT graphics card around that to like $500 price point right now, you're never going to get like CPU limited, honestly. You might on very rare occasions, but it's great. It got my thumb up of approval. AMD is bringing FSR3 frame generation to Starfield literally like next week. I actually did a video where I modded FSR3 frame gen into this game and it looked great. It's probably just going to be better, honestly. So we're excited to share that AMD FSR3 frame generation is coming to Starfield's game beta next week, and FSR3 be available to all PC players later this month for our next scheduled update. So you'll get to try this out next week, and I might mess around with it. I kind of want to do a revisit on frame generation technologies, especially now since I have some Super or 40 series super cards, so I can compare it to DLSS 3 frame generation, all that stuff. I'm excited to test this out. There's also so many other games that are getting FSR 3. Now, I mean, I don't know how many guys in the crowd are farming simulator extraordinaires, but frame generation from FSR 3 is now available in Farming Simulator. We also see that there's a weird cat. 2 more games that are getting FSR 3 frame generation. I think a lot of games are going to be getting this, and this is because FSR 3 became out open source, so like it's officially released and developers can now get their hands on it and use it. I'm pretty sure there's literally a plugin now to put it into a lot of engines, so it's not that difficult as far as I know. I'm not a developer. We're going to start seeing this get pumped out into a bunch of games pretty soon. Really exciting to see. So this is in the Talos Principle 2 and Estinensal. A lot of games, I'm gonna have to check this out. Okay, I'm gonna have to check out FSR 3 and DLSS 3 in a lot of games. What's gonna help me do that is, this sounds kind of random, but Elgato is gonna help me do that. They're not sponsoring me or anything. I bought this. This is actually their 4KX graphics card. Not graphics card, capture card. Basically, Elgato just released new capture cards. This is more for creators and stuff, but this is going to allow me to capture from a different system 120 FPS footage, which is really good for slowing it down and pixel peeping and stuff like that. I can do this at 1440p, so yeah, we can really dig in deep and get a whole bunch of detail. I'm really excited to use this. I ordered it. It's coming in soon, so I'm going to be able to test things like that at higher FPS to do more frame analysis type stuff. The last graphics card that we have coming out is the RTX 3050 6GB, the slow edition. Yay! And it's at $170. Yay! But yeah, the RTX 3050 6GB. We've heard this in the rumors a lot. I think the biggest disadvantage to this card, it's not on Ada Lovelace. Like, it's not a 40 series graphics card. They're still releasing a 3000 series card. It's like 4 years later, guys. Power efficiency on their new cards get really good. And the reason I think this new 3050 6GB is not on 4000 series is actually because this card here, you know, the RTX 4060, this should have been a 4050. If you just look at the die size on this, it's only 159 millimeters squared. So let me hide this and let's go ahead and find the 3050 8GB. And I think what we're gonna find is that the die size is actually bigger on the RTX 3050. This can usually just signify what kind of class of card it is. So you can see that the 4060 has a smaller die size, $170, which is a pretty low price point, but that usually gets into that range where you don't get as good price to performance. Like, you can't just keep making it cheaper, or else it doesn't always make it better, because there's kind of like set costs of, like, you know, shipping, the basic manufacturing, the packaging and stuff. Like, it costs a certain amount to do all that stuff. And it's really interesting right now because there is competition on the market. Intel Arc's A750 is probably going to destroy this card most of the time. Even when the A750 from Intel with their drivers and stuff, even when it's performing poorly, it'll probably still be the RTX 3050 6GB. That's pretty funny, I guess. But also AMD's 6600 is coming in at like $200 right now. and that is going to beat both of those cards usually. Yeah, the 3050 is going to be bad. The only advantage of getting it is obviously the power connector kind of stuff, the low profile cards. Like if you have a case that just can't take taller graphics cards in it, then it might be good. And you're also getting NVIDIA features like ray tracing and stuff and DLSS at a cheaper price point, but it's not going to be that fast if you want to use those features, but at least it's there, I guess. How do we want to look at budget GPUs now? Because yeah, we just talked about the RX 6600 is a decent at that price point, but AMD wanted to not make budget graphics cards anymore, and instead they wanted to release these things called APUs. And Hardware Unboxed did a cool video, and I like their title. It was New Budget GPU, but it looks like a CPU. And that's because this is actually the new budget GPU, the 8700G. So these are CPUs that have beefier built-in integrated graphics, okay? And what was really interesting that they compared to in here, they took basically how much it would cost to get an 8700G, which is like what? It's like $330 or something like that. They compared it to a CPU and discrete GPU combo that would like match that same price point. You can see that here that a GPU discrete gets you 372 FPS in Fortnite on 1080p low, but the integrated graphics for the same price is getting you 132. It's still not worth getting an APU. They're not at that point, unless this would need to be probably like, in order to match that same price to performance, it would have to be like $200. And that is pretty funny. It basically makes APUs into this like certain like niche use case where it needs to be like a small form factor system where you couldn't fit a graphics card in it. Now this could be good for something like a home theater PC or something like that, because usually those cases are pretty small and you don't need this insane amount of graphics horsepower on like a home theater PC. Usually you're just playing back things, or you might be streaming games to it from a more powerful system in your house or something like that. Something else interesting that AMD did was release a driver dedicated for one game, and that is Suicide Squad. They jilled the Justice League. You know what I'm talking about. You know what this game is, okay? Driver for this game, and a lot of people are like, it's kind of bad. Like they don't really like the game. But one really, really good high quality video came out of the Suicide Squad game. And that is this one. So on the left side is actually AMD, or sorry, I got GPU stuff in my head. On the left side is actually Arkham Knight. It's one of the Arkham games from 2015. I forget which game it's exactly called. On the right is Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, which just came out. And as you can see, the physics are just they're so much better here. The actual model and stuff is a lot better. I'll just pause here for a sec. It's just kind of sucks to see it. Like Nick Tech put out this video where he kind of compared these games like side by side. One of the most insane parts in this, from a game that came out 9 years ago compared to a game that came out today. Like how fluid and stuff the combat is in this game. You kind of bounce around doing stuff. It reminds me of the Spider-Man games actually a lot. It just looks really fun. But then if you compare it to the new game, it's kind of just like you just kind of smack things around. What a combo. What a combo. Now, Nick Tech, you know, I'll be frank here. He's probably being a little facetious with his comparisons here, but it's just kind of to dramatize the situation this game is in, because Roksteady is a studio that made all of those Arkham Knight games.
It's very cool, very Batman, and I think this game, more than any other one so far, feels like a Batman simulator.
But those games were all very well received, and Roksteady as a studio has been very well respected in the community. It sucks to see them making a game like this, where it's kind of like the passion has been ripped out of it. It's a live service, microtransactions game. It just seems like they were pressured from top down to make a game that they didn't want to make at the same time. And I hope this doesn't kill Roksteady as a studio. Hopefully they're given some autonomy back. I'm pretty sure a lot of the higher ups at the company actually stepped down during this game's development, probably because they were being pressured or led into a way that they didn't want to be led in. And that really sucks from a studio that's so beloved by the community. But let me know what you think about them. Obviously, we've had absolutely tons of GPU news. And honestly, I'm sitting here and I expected my bed to get made.
Do it.
What? An AMD? Well, AMD first year. And yeah, this one doesn't justify the price tag. I think it's actually worse price to performance than the original 7600X. 7600. The NVIDIA Super Series cards, a modest increase in FUs. So I think people love the Super Series cards, but in summary, the Super Series cards they're what 40 series cards always should have been. Basically, that's the community consensus. We've seen some price cuts, but not anything that dramatic in the market. I thought things were going to be so much better than this. I actually hyped it up a lot, and I'm kind of disappointed. But I will do a GPU pricing update pretty soon to really dig into this more. We've seen a 4-slot graphics card, which is a 4080 Super from Asus and Noctua. I don't even know if the fans are going to turn on, honestly. But it's probably so stupid quiet that you'll never hear the thing. You might not care about that card because it's probably gonna be like $1,500. But Yeston is making more waifu graphics cards, or they're actually out already, but I can't find where to buy them. If you know where to buy them, just let me know. Let me know in them comments, bro. We all need to know. But if you can't get a Yeston waifu card, then and MSI is making one too. And I think it's already out. This is a 4070 Super. If you don't want other people to know that you have a waifu graphics card, you can actually magnetically take it off so that you can just kind of hide that. AMD also is releasing a new CPU, which is so cool. And it's still an AM4, which is an old platform. And it looks like it's going to be pretty solid for the price. So just another upgrade for $250 on AM4 if you're still on the platform, which love to see it because AM4 is actually still great. I'm using an AM4 system right now. Yeah, we're seeing FSR3 coming into more games, especially like Starfield, Farming Simulator, games like the Talos Principle 3 and Stencil. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but there's a really weird cat. Basically what this means is that FSR is being actually released and developers can actually get their hands on it without working directly with AMD. And I'm going to be testing that with my new capture card from Elgato. They actually did release a PCIe card as well, if you're interested in that. This one is actually better on USB, which is odd. If you know anything about capture cards, and it's interesting. NVIDIA is also releasing a pretty crappy graphics card. Let me know if you want me to test this. I feel like it's going to be pretty bad though. And AMD released a new APU. And it seems like it isn't very good value that we would hope it to be. It's faster than their old APUs, but it isn't that good if you're talking about a budget GPU APU thing. Suicide Squad, there's an iconic clip here that just kind of proves the point. So this game is kind of sad to see, honestly. And that's about all the GPU news, tech news, PC hardware news, gaming news, or whatever that I have to talk about. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. And I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace. There's a cat on it now. Can't even see him.